Right.
They changed all that.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
got 60 days.
That now.
That's good.
Yeah.
You may not be there, Jane.
Don't you like to see somebody who takes care of business? It's just not like, hey, tough time.
Figure it out.
They figure it out.
Yeah.
I'm first.
I don't know, trying to be out using Apple TV. Okay. Alright. I just want to make sure we don't cross. I just got another. I need to be out there by 8 if
If you weren't here, I was shooting for 7:30.
Hey, the shorter the better. I've been home since 6:30 this morning. Been a long day.
When you hit the bed, I mean, you fall asleep.
Hey Jenny,
I'm
we ready to go?
before I go to bed. I don't know.
I'd like to call this meeting to order, our regular meeting for the month of October 2018. Please stand and join us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, first item this evening is School Spotlight, and that's Mrs. Cotton, Summer 2018 Costa Rica trip.
I'm going to move up here so I can see what I'm looking at. Hopefully.
It was there a minute ago.
It was there a minute ago, wasn't it?
I thought we were going to watch a movie.
Mamma Mia.
My biggest challenge in making this was paring down the photos. Because I think between everyone in the group who shared to a shared drive, there were 1,200 and some different video, photo, so on and so forth. So I promised I didn't bring them all. So. This is an iMovie, which I put together because I like the transitions, but I'm going to stop it. I'm going to talk about the photos just very briefly as we go along, so you know what you're looking at, okay?
Great.
This is where we went, which is Costa Rica. Our flight was 6 hours, and then we traveled 8 hours down the Pacific Coast Highway to the farthest, lowest part of Costa Rica, right above Panama, okay? It's called Dulce Gulf, which is here. Most of the area is a national park. There is one town, Puerto Jimenez. The majority of the people that live there are ranchers and farmers. So for us to come as tourists, which they're trying to build the tourist industry in that part of the country, it's very welcome. Very happy to see us. We have a lot of access to local tour guides and people with a lot of expertise in the area. Okay. So it was very nice to be able to go. I took 15 kids and 5 adults, which was a really nice number. Now, Corcovado National Park, one of the reasons, this is us in Indianapolis, one of the reasons I always wanted to go to Corcovado was because it's known for having some of the very best rainforests in the world. This is Playa Blanca, which is where they had the International Surfing Competition last year. Foundation Neotropica is our host down there. They are an arm of the National Wildlife Federation of Costa Rica. They house scientists and visiting dignitaries and students and people who want to come to the area. So it was a very nice little camp where we stayed. Good people. And we had our own tour bus, we had our own driver, we had our own, that's the driver right there. That's Ullman. Very nice guy. I depended on him quite a bit. Now, we went to a crocodile reserve. And this is one of the first wildlife shots I'll show you. Let's see if I can stop it. This is jumpy. They named this guy Mike Tyson. The locals named him Mike Tyson. And they named him Mike Tyson because he had a bad habit of eating his neighbors and biting them and things like that. So I found that
name
funny
applies,
that they were naming it after an American. Yeah, so. And the kids on the bridge. Really no guardrails, no safety procedures at all. Now some of my wildlife photos, this is a tree in Corcovado, you're looking up the inside. Those are glass frog tadpoles. We saw a lot of this sort of thing. The frogs and the amphibians don't lay their eggs on the ground, they lay them in the trees. So you'll be walking along and see these big masses, and the tadpoles are wiggling in them, and they come out as adult frogs and they drop to the ground and they hop away. So. This was a tree boa. This is the only snake we saw while we were there this time, which is I was thankful for. This is my second trip to Costa Rica, as you know, and we saw a poisonous one the last time, so I was happy to limit our snake exposure. Even though I do like to see them, it's still a little too exciting.
Wow.
Now this photo is of, she's a tiger moth. It was taken through a telescope. She was at the top of a tree. You can see she's a tiger moth because of the eye right there. And it's a female, and that was taken from about 200 feet up. So there's a very good lens. I was really happy to have the telescope camera with us. We really got to see some beautiful, beautiful pictures. Now this is a footprint. It's a footprint of an animal called a tapir, or a tapir in English. They are the size of a small pony with an elephant proboscis trunk and long legs and an attitude of a wild hog. Okay? They don't like people. And this mother had come through, it was a female and a baby, and the guide said that we had missed it maybe by 15 minutes to a half hour. And this was, you can see his finger for reference, the photo on the trail. But we got to see so much wildlife. It was wonderful. But not a tapir in real life. And I was happy for that. I don't think we needed the encounter. Now look at his face. Look at his face. This frog, this is a cane toad. And that's a small cane toad actually, compared to how they normally are. And what he was saying, look at this, and this is a still from a video, and the frog started screaming. Just as soon as he showed it to me for the picture, this frog started screaming, and he dropped it. Like this.
A scream, a frog scream.
It screamed. It sounded like help. This is out on a kayaking trip. And more of that. We got to go out and see an egret colony in a lagoon. And there's Enrique on the spotting scope and some of our kids. Proudly dressed in their American garb. This is a stork-like bird that we got to see on the way. And there's a couple quick shots of some of the beautiful fungi that are there. Those are actually the size of my hand. We got to plant mangrove trees, which was the highlight of the trip. We went with some local fishermen and we restored an area that had been degraded and planted mangroves as a storm and the tide were coming in. So we're planting quickly and frenetically so we can get out of there. But it was really enjoyable. Oh, and this guy was there. And this guy. The wildlife are not afraid of you there because they're not used to seeing people. And so this guy, once he figured out the kids had cookies, would not leave them alone. No. And he was a young one. This is the same area about an hour later as we were leaving, so you can see how the tide came in. It has 10-foot variations in tide in that area. So we had to get out. We had just a very narrow window of time. And we got to go zip lining, and that was something the kids really liked. It was a beautiful zip line, a lot of flowers up in the trees. And this was Miss Terry. She's one of the grandmothers, and she was very proud because she's 69 and she went on the zip line. So she was very proud of herself for that. Some of the dinners we had. You don't see any kind of plastic in Costa Rica. No plastic utensils, no water bottles. They don't believe in it. This is chocolate at a chocolate farm. This is what it looks like before they grind it and process it. And this is a chocolate tree. The pods come off on those thorns, the pods that become chocolate. He doesn't like the taste of the pulp, can you tell? And that's grinding the beans before we made it into a paste. The paste has to have milk and sugar and stuff to me before it's palatable. But the kids really, really enjoyed it. And they're enjoying themselves there. This is our guide, Eric. He stayed with us the whole time and with Jacob. He really did a good job with it, with the locals. And went out in the Gulf in some of the fishermen's boats. We had to go out in small boats. So there were 4 or 5 of us in each boat. So we got to get some good shots of each other on the boats. It was kind of overcast all those days. And there's dolphins. You'd see sun in the morning, and then by afternoon it would cloud up, and it would rain about 1, and by dinner time it was clear again. So this is another place we got to go snorkeling. No scuba diving, but snorkeling. So that's a typical beach, very rocky, another typical beach where we went. We had the privilege of going to an island that was by reservation only and getting the opportunity to snorkel. Some more views. More kids. I took my husband with me. He was just like one of the kids, so in a lot of ways. This is called well, it's a grocery store is what it is. They call it a soda. This was out on the end of the island. And this is a taxi. We were going out to the indigenous reservation where their version of Native Americans live. And this was the chief of the tribe showing them how to dance with a rattle. They danced around and around and around and around. Made a big noise. Bree dressing up as a princess. This is the chief's little girl. She was just so beautiful I had to take her picture. And this is Corcovado's National Park's entrance where all the trails began. This has just been built, so it's really beautiful and nice inside. And our student James, after he'd been out on the trails for 8 hours, he was pretty tired. Thought that was a really good picture. And all of us. Beautiful weather. It stayed mid-80s the whole time, but it was 90% humidity. And look down, as you go down, I did this on purpose. You see the top of the tree, and as you go down, wait for it, now, that's a big tree. It's called a kapok tree, and they're huge. So, very tall, about 400 feet, about 400 feet. I wanted to thank you for letting me take these kids to Costa Rica. I really appreciate the board's approval to doing that, and I'd like to do it again in the future. We really had a wonderful time, really did. So, I could stay and show you pictures all night.
Were you able to see any of the schools?
Yes, all of the schools are very nice. They're very small neighborhood schools, and then as you get into high school, it's more like a lot like here. You have neighborhood elementary schools, and then as they get bigger, they bus to a high school. Tiny little buildings, beautiful and clean. Each one has a beautiful soccer field. Yeah. Very, very much into education there. It's one of their primary spendings of money. They abolished their military 50 years ago for the purpose of putting that money into education. So they have a 98% literacy rate because of that. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on. First of all is a recommendation to approve the agenda. Board members, I think Mr. Chapman distributed one additional item via addenda. So I would entertain a motion including the addenda as approving the agenda.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Bonnie and Kelly, I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda plus the addenda as presented. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all members in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Ayes have it, motion carries. Now this brings us to our first citizens comment period. If anybody in the audience would like to address the board on an agenda item this evening, now will be your chance to do so. If you're interested in addressing the board, please stand, state your name for the record. Seeing and hearing no comment, we'll close citizens comment period and move on with the regular portion of the agenda. First of all, consideration of the minutes of the regular session meeting and addendum on September 17, 2018. The special session meeting held on October 1st, 2018, and the executive session held on October 2nd, 2018.
So move on all three meetings. Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of the before mentioned meetings. Any further discussion? Hearing no discussion, all members in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Ayes have it, motion carries. Moving on to finance and claims.
I guess you're getting used to the new reports.
I was going to say, we're just now getting these figured out, right? Yeah, they're not sequential, are they?
No. I would suggest any recommendation would be the financial report and vouchers as presented in the report. Make it a little bit easier for you, unless you have any questions on a particular voucher.
I move to accept the financial report and vouchers as presented.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second to approve this month's financial report and vouchers as presented. Any further discussion? Hearing no discussion, all members in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Ayes have it, motion carries. Next item, recommendation to adopt the proposed 2019 corporation budget. Mr. Chapman.
Members of the board, we have come to the point in our annual budget process to recommend to the board the adoption of the proposed budget. We have met all the necessary requirements, including publication of and public hearing for the proposed 2019 budget. Tonight we are requesting board approval of the 2019 proposed budget, which includes $10,530,995 for the education fund, $5,565,450 for the operations fund, and $1,518,582 for the debt service fund. We ask your approval for the proposed budget this evening.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the 2019 budget as presented. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all members in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Ayes have it, motion carries. Moving on, tonight's personnel report for October. Mr. Chapman.
Members of the board, the personnel report for the month of October reflects the following. We have one maternity leave of absence for Erica Stepp, Southern High School band director, from December 5th to March 1st. And we also have a couple of classified items. Cindy Boyd, voluntary transfer in the high school cafeteria, I believe it is, from 3 to 4 hours, and Elizabeth Doan, 3-hour cook, also effective, both of those effective October this year. We do have assignment corrections to the middle school football staff due to some changes that would needed to be made. So those football staff changes are listed in your report as well, and we ask your approval this evening.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the personnel report. Is there any discussion? And actually, I do have a question. In Mrs. Stepp's letter regarding her maternity leave, she refers to parents are going to help supervise basketball games during basketball.
They will be vetted through the high school.
Yeah, that's what I was wanting to hear. Okay.
Mr. Garrett has done that in the past too. So.
Okay. We got a procedure for that?
Yes.
Okay. Any further comment, questions? Hearing none, all members in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Ayes have it, motion carries. Next item, South Vermillion Middle School Emotional Support Dog. Mrs. Harris.
And company.
And company, yeah.
So while Mrs. Sellers is getting that hooked up, I will introduce you to our little bit of our committee. So we have Mrs. Sellers, who teaches GAIN at the middle school, Michaela Cohey, who is an 8th grade student at the middle school, Carolee Coldry, who is our functional special education teacher, and Maya Taylor, who is a 7th grader. So they are just a snippet of our committee who volunteered to come and help present tonight. So I want to start. This is our proposal for our emotional support or therapy dog for the middle school. And this is not a specific student dog, like there is a dog at the high school. It is for a specific student. The student brought their own dog. This is a dog for the school building. This is the school dog. So what you see here is a picture of an Instagram post from the dog at Duggar School. Her name is Maggie. And the English class at the high school actually is in charge of creating that Instagram page for Maggie and updating that with posts of what Maggie does around the school. So we're going to start by showing you a short video, it's about 4 to 5 minutes, of a therapy dog in action in a school so you can get a sense of what it does and what the purpose is.
Niles High School has a certified therapy dog, Derby, who's had an extraordinary impact on students and faculty.
She came at a time of need for Niles. We had a rough start at the beginning of the year, and we have some really awesome kids who are overcoming some things outside of school. And she provides just an added person, even though she's a dog, for comfort.
She is available to students as requested, as needed. I have kids that just kind of come by and hang out with her.
Even if it's just sitting next to her and rubbing her. Lunch hour, you come in here, there are kids often on the floor. Carrie's working away and they're just petting Derby. Kids take her out on their lunch break and throw a ball to her and she runs around.
Underclassmen that don't go out to lunch will come in and see her every day and interact with her.
She's really good about leaning in on them, allowing them to pet her. I think that's kind of her way of getting them hugs. She's incredibly loving and really enjoys being with the kids.
She doesn't judge. She doesn't make fun of you.
Like, there's no wrong with Derby. There's nothing bad she does. So if you're going through something, you just touch her or rub her, you see like, this is an innocent dog. You just been around it. It makes you happy. Like, I see a lot of students with problems. They can't react with people. They can react with animals better.
Derby comes to school every day, and therapy dogs like Derby can enhance physiological development.
Derby is here for students that have personal problems, and she's a stress reliever, so when people come in and they see Derby looking at her, they kind of forget about what they're thinking about or what's stressing them out.
You see her, my blood pressure automatically goes down when you pet her.
It feels like she feels their pain, you know. She understands what they're going through.
When I am actually having a one-on-one with a kid that may be a little bit overwhelmed or crying, she's really good about sensing that and will actually go and sit by students. She's walked out of my office when she's heard kids cry.
Derby visits classrooms to help relieve stress as students prepare for tests.
If you're ever struggling with class or in class, and you feel like that it's come to a point where you don't want to do it anymore, or you feel like that the class isn't for you, you're not smart enough to do it, you come down here and rub Derby or talk to her, or have a session with Derby, you might feel different.
Derby's presence has helped students express their feelings and have discussions about academics and personal issues.
There have been a couple that I think I would not necessarily have had a conversation with that child had they not come to seek Derby out. And it's not unusual for a kid to request to see me specifically because they know that I have Derby. So they'll come in and rather than sitting in a chair, they just flop on the floor. And it's, hey, this kid said something to me and it really hurt my feelings, and so I kind of just wanted to talk that out.
When I see Derby in action is when students are up here and they're out of the academic setting. I also see her after school when kids are at study table. She just provides that extra sense of peace. It's her calmness brings calm to everyone here where they focus more.
She is well behaved. She knows her commands, she listens to the commands, and so that combination of doing the right thing when told, and even when not told, she's just a good dog. She's very calm, she'll follow me around in the office without a leash, and I don't worry about that because if somebody doesn't want her to approach them, I call her over, she doesn't move.
Reinhardt and Derby met with a trainer, went through courses, and passed the test.
You had to have Canine Good Citizen certification. And that is your basic command: sit, stay, leave it, those sorts of things. And it was really just practicing. How well does she walk? Left turns, right turns, U-turns.
There wasn't a lot of cost because Carrie was willing to incur the costs of her training and bringing a dog bed in. But also, we were concerned about unknowns. Cleanup, if she were to have an accident, those types of things. But other than that, we couldn't think of too many objections. As soon as I kept saying, what if, we came up with solutions.
Students now feel a sense of significance and value.
It teaches you responsibility because I have to take Derby out sometimes, take her to the bathroom, and fill her bowl up with water.
That ownership part of it has been very powerful for them. And for those that do come see her, just that petting, just that reaction, I can't tell you. And truthfully, the number of staff that'll come in. I'll be like, you just keep doing what you're doing, I'm going to sit here, and they take 2 minutes, and just that movement of touching her.
It's impacted the adults just as much as it has the kids.
And as far as the future is concerned,
to be able to expand it to other elementaries, to the middle school, I think would be really powerful.
Every time I see her, she gives a different impact on my life, and it's always good, never bad, because I get so happy taking her out. She brings joy to me and a lot of students around here.
this furry companion has changed the culture of Niles High School. What unique thing is happening in your school? We want to hear from you.
So you have our full proposal that we sent that has all of the research. We developed a committee. We started talking about this actually about a year ago. Carolee and I started having a conversation a year ago, and also Donna Coleman, our counselor, because the number of emotional needs in our building has increased drastically in the last couple of years. And I think that can be attributed to a lot of things. I think just what kids have to go through today. I think social media, and just a lot of what they experience outside of our school building, just their life at home. There are a lot of stressors there, a lot of emotional issues. So just some of the statistics of our building, and these are just a few, but we do have 9 kids that every Tuesday meet with the behavior specialist from the Vermillion bus. She actually has an office in our building, and there are 9 students who every Tuesday meet with her. And those are the more severe cases. We have numerous students who have appointments outside of school hours, either with the same counselors or at Hamilton Center. We have 8 students in our building that are diagnosed with autism. We have 29 plus, because a lot of them we may not know about, students diagnosed with ADHD. We have 24 6th grade students currently in a reading intervention class because they are substantially below grade level in reading. Again, social media has contributed to a lot of the stress, and we see a huge increase in depression and anxiety, mental health issues, self-harm behaviors. And it's scary to think about, but we have a lot of kids that are cutting, and the numbers of kids that are cutting has increased tremendously in the past couple of years. We have a lot of kids that express suicidal thoughts, and it's not just the kids who have issues outside of school, it's some of our high ability kids that put so much pressure on themselves to perform, and they're involved in everything, and it just becomes overwhelming to them, and they don't know what to do. So those are just some of the reasons we started talking about this. Turn it over to my crew.
Some benefits is that we have many emotional needs that SPMS and emotional support dog can decrease feelings of anxiety, loneliness, and depression, because like with the dog there, you're able to express your feelings in ways that if you were to talk to a person, you can kind of stress, and with the dog, they can't say rude things back to you. So that's the thing. A dog in the school decreases the feelings of a sterile environment and creates a feeling of safety, because the dog, the dog is calming. It gives you some calmness throughout you. And a dog can also help a new student tour the building, because whenever you're a new student, I'm saying cuss a lot. Whenever you're a new student, it kind of is a little nerve-wracking, and it'll allow you to kind of it decreases the anxiety and stress. And staff, they would also benefit from this, because there's a lot of students who argue in class and they come back at the end of the day, they have a stressful day. It can also be a benefit towards them.
So a therapy dog allows people to improve their communication skills. So we've all had those days where we just don't want to talk to people. And I know that I feel okay, just petting my cat, and it's it just calms you. And so this is one of the benefits of having that. A therapy dog helps with grades and academic success. Studies show children with non-judgmental ears of the therapy dog the perfect choice to hone and improve their reading skills. So not just that, but I know for high ability, I put a lot of stress if there's a big test, and lots of people in my class get really stressed out, and so this just helps decrease that. For mental health, the therapy dog will lessen depression, decrease feelings of isolation, encourage communication, provide comfort, decrease anxiety, and increase socialization. And high ability students are showing increased anxiety and stress due to the amount of pressure they put on themselves. Having a therapy dog in the classroom during a test can help reduce the stress and anxiety.
And this is the cost of the dog. We've come up with both short and long term. The immediate cost obviously would be the cost of the dog, which depending on the breed would be anywhere from $1,000 to $1,500, and the initial training would be $1,500. And we know that is the cost because we've talked to the trainer. And then the long term would be the vet expenses, food, things like that. Student Council has offered to donate the initial cost of the dog and the training, and then we've come up with ideas to fundraise throughout the building. And then we also thought that we could put up a chart so the kids could see our goal, how much we wanted, and then where we're at on that goal, and so that would give them a sense of ownership of the dog. Also the vet, Taz Byers, the music teacher, her daughter is a vet tech, and she said she was more than willing to help anywhere she can with that.
Excellent. So process and procedure, there's an absolute definite way you have to go about. We're not going to go get a dog from a shelter, train it how to sit, run, come back to you. It has to go through a really lengthy training. My brother had one, and it's really excessive. So they start with the basic skills that we all want our dogs to have, but then they have to go into how do they react with people. It's very, very specific. So I don't know if you've seen the shows, I think it's on a Saturday morning, they're bringing therapy dogs in. The dog has to pass the test with the trainer, but then as well with other individuals with the trainer. So there is a lot of work that will go into making sure it's absolutely appropriate. So there's a lot that happens there. The therapy dog also will, and we'll make sure the students know this as well, it is a staff member, it is not a school pet. We will not view it as that. It is there for the student, it is there for the kids. And they will all be trained on how to interact with it. You can't just walk up to a therapy dog and pet it like you would your own pet at home. There are protocols and procedures that you have to go through. We would, of course, talk to parents and guardians if we really want their child to work with the dog on a regular basis. so that we have the proper approval. And Mrs. Cutliff has already done the research for us in terms of any students with allergies, and we're well aware of what process do we have to go with, how close can that dog be to those children, so.
So addressing the concerns, a permission slip would be sent home to parents and guardians asking permission for students to be able to interact with the dog, so we don't want to just throw students into a situation that they're not okay with, so this will just help us get a view on who wants to be around it and who is kind of would like another option. And then a newsletter or email would be sent home to parents, letting them know to make sure that any allergies related to the animals are documented at school. We don't want any health issues. Several types of dogs recommended due to being hypoallergenic and having a loving temperament include poodles, labradoodles, labs, golden retrievers, and St. Bernards. Therapy dogs are well trained and will not jump or charge to students, so there are no issues with biting, or if there's any, like a kid gets angry, they're not gonna just run up and start barking, they'll stay calm. There will be a signage posted on the front doors and in the office that a therapy dog is to be used in the building.
And Mrs. Harris did do some research, and I tried to as well. There aren't a lot of schools out there who have jumped on the therapy dog concept. However, I did email a couple of people. I haven't heard back, but one of my friends who did work at Anderson said when this dog came into their building, they saw an incredible, massive change. So while there aren't a lot out there, the ones who are doing it are seeing some incredible change, just some amazing things. We have a great example for you here in a little bit, but the teacher at Anderson said she had a student in her room that was just unconsolable. But once the dog came into the classroom, everything changed. So over a couple of weeks, all of a sudden, she had a new student. So we're hoping we get to add a little mark to ourselves as well.
So this is Abby, and Abby is in Carolee's room, and I'll let her speak to this a little bit, but we had permission from Abby's mom to show the video of Abby. Abby earned some reward time with Miss Natalie, our secretary's grand dog. This is their dog, and she is, again, very loving, very calm, and Abby works hard for reward with this dog.
Mm-hmm. She actually has a behavior plan that she works every day on for her behavior plan, but she earns about 9 stickers. That's how many she can earn a day is 9. She averages about 6 or 7. But when this opportunity came up and said, Mrs. Natalie said, if you get 9 on Wednesday, we'll bring Maggie in, or I'm sorry, Annie, and she did, no problems. I mean, all day long, and she's like, I'm gonna get to see Annie. I'm gonna see Annie tomorrow. I get to see Annie. Nobody knew who Annie was except for Abby, but they were like, all right, and she did, no problems. That day was perfect.
And the other thing is she was scared of dogs.
Yes.
When the first time she saw Annie in the office, she was scared. She didn't really want to go anywhere near. She thought it was cute, and oh, that's a cute dog. But she didn't really want to go anywhere near it. And just in 2 times of being with Annie, she'll pet it on the head. And before she'd say, put her head down, she didn't want to pet her on her head. And now you can see a picture, now she's actually petting her on her head.
And also in this video, you will not hear any appropriate words. And I know some other people, inappropriate, sorry. And I know some other people can know that that's very hard for Abby not to say inappropriate things on a daily basis. And she's did great that day for the reward and while she's with this dog.
Now shake. Shake. Great. There you go. Oh, did you tweet?
She's feeding her potato chips.
Good boo.
Now you try and see if she'll do it for you now.
Lay down. Lay down, Annie.
Okay, girl. Oh, give the treat.
There you go.
Abby enjoyed eating some of the potato
Yes,
chips.
it was
It goes without saying.
And then just to finish up, just a picture of a student at Duggar reading to their therapy dog. They have shown huge growth in reading at their elementary level just because the kids will read out loud to the dog as opposed to reading out loud to another kid or an adult. And then the other picture is the student at the high school and her dog. She rides Michaela's bus, and so Michaela was talking to her about that on the bus. And so she offered to come in and talk to me and bring her dog in to show me this morning. So that was a really neat experience too.
Any questions?
I find this intriguing, but how are we going to implement it at the middle school? Like I understand the theory, but how is this going to work? Where's the dog going to be? Who's the handler? What's the goal? Is it emotional therapy? Is it literacy? Is it climate?
It's everything. It's everything. Carolee and I would be trained to be the co-handlers. Carolee has offered to keep the dog. It would be owned by the school, but she has offered to keep the dog in the evenings and weekends and things like that. But we would both be trained to handle the dog. So during the school day, the dog would be with me or the dog would be with Carolee. Unless it was specifically working in the counselor's office with a student, but we would be the handlers of the dog. It would probably spend a lot of time in the beginning in the functional room just because the needs are very high in there, and I could see it being very valuable in that classroom. But just standing with me in the morning when I'm greeting the kids as they come in. This girl was here this morning as the kids were coming in off the bus, and just to hear, I mean, they were standing there with me, and just to hear as the kids were walking in going, "Aw," you know, it immediately lifted the mood as they were coming in off the bus, and they didn't go anywhere near it, they didn't try to pet it, but just that initial, oh my gosh, it's a dog, and it's a good feeling, it's a positive atmosphere.
Including the staff, when a few of the staff members came in, their moods lifted up too.
Yeah.
What about, is there any nonprofits you guys could partner with that could possibly donate a dog or the training?
I've talked around, and there's some places in Rockville where I've thought about maybe emailing or asking for donations, but they make food, and that would just help a lot with the cost.
But I think there are some dog therapy entities that they specialize in placing these types of dogs with schools. I just did a quick little Google search because I thought it was interesting, but it might be something that...
Right. We just talked to the one place just to get a cost, and because that's who Duggar used to train their dog.
And this dog also.
Yeah.
And that, yes, that dog went through training at the same place.
She said that the training went very well. The dog, when it was with us, it was very, very calm. It stayed by her side at all times. It didn't like jump around and leave her.
But yes, there are other agencies that do the training too. There's one in Farmersburg as well.
So you haven't actually selected the dog yet? You were just
No,
kind of
they're ready. The place in Terre Haute is ready to select one the minute we get the approval. He has several breeders that he works with that specifically breed dogs for therapy services.
What about liability issues? And I know there are students that have had traumatic experiences with animals and have a fear, and even leads into adulthood.
Sure.
But what about liability issues?
I talked to Gary Hanner and got an email back from him today. I sent him the proposal, sent him a couple articles with research, and sent him the name of the person at Duggar. And he got back with me today and said he talked to Julie Slavens at Department of Education. And he basically said that he did not have any concerns with our plan. He said that there are no state or federal regulations on having a dog in the school building. So it's specifically up to a policy that's created by the school board. And that's what all of these other schools have done. It's just a policy adopted by the school board on how the dog will be used and what the purpose will be. He said that, as far as he said we would need to investigate any kind of allergies, things like that. And then as far as the fears, once we know that the student has had a traumatic experience or a fear, then that dog just would not go near them. We just make sure that dog did not. And the dog is so well trained that it won't. It will not leave your side unless you tell it to.
We plan to send out a survey to ask the students how they feel about dogs.
And then those that do have fears, we talked today about how we would have sessions if they wanted to try to get past that fear. We would have sessions where they could work with the dog, and John Holcomb, the guy that trained the dog, offered to come in and do those kind of services where they would work with kids with fears.
So you said there is a dog at the high school now, but it's a student's, like a service dog?
Service dog,
It's
yes.
a service dog. And there's been no problems there with that?
No, and it rides the bus.
We have a general animal policy, but this would mean we'd have to tweak it a little bit. And Gary had said he's fine with working with us on doing that as well, so.
So it's not actually, you're not actually asking for a motion or anything?
No recommendation tonight, this is just basically
getting
a proposal,
information.
bringing it to you so you have time to digest it, and we'll bring it back next month, I believe.
What about the risk to the dog as far as safety?
I'm sorry, I missed the beginning.
Like the safety to the dog. You know, middle school kids are gonna pull its tail and
Or accidentally
harass it.
step on it.
Yeah.
That'd be
Yeah.
learning for them too.
That's where when he comes in, he'll actually.
Right,
take
he
whole
trains
students.
the kids.
Yes, and he's gonna come into the building when the dog is ready to come to work. He's gonna come in and talk to the students as a whole, which we'll be ready for, and how to do the short commands for the dog. And then he'll come in and talk to the students about how this is and like another teacher.
It's not a pet, it's not something that they would sit and wrestle with it and play with, that's not the purpose.
However, there will be times like in the counselor's office when it's downtime and Mrs. Coleman wants to talk to the students, so the students able to just pet it. That will be the dog's job at that time. I'm sorry, I don't think I answered your question though. Oh, about like the tail and the chairs and things like that?
Just if it's a distraction to the kids and they're tormenting the dog more than, I know. Because the video is a high school.
Yes.
And I think it's a different level at the middle school of how they're gonna interact with the dogs.
And Duggar actually is K through 12. And so they, I know in Duggar, they kind of assign the dog. The teacher would kind of like have a sign-up sheet and say, we'd like to have Maggie this day or during this time. And then the high school students were more responsible for taking him out, going to the bathroom and things like that. So they kind of came up with a schedule for the dog, where the dog was going to be and things like that. And I think that's what we would create. We just have to get him in the building and see what works for him.
They know how to wildcat costume.
Absolutely.
Oh, yes.
And we'll have a service vest, because in this video, this dog did not have one, but in a lot of the other videos we watched and the articles that we read, that's how the dog knows it's at work, is you put that service vest on and then it knows it's going to work. And then when the vest comes off, it knows it's pet time.
Yeah.
Interesting, thank you.
Any other questions?
Neat idea.
Thank you, very nice work.
Thank you.
Very impressive.
Okay, I'm gonna let them go home, because some of them haven't even been home.
Well spoken, you two young ladies. That's a
Thank you.
very good job.
They are remarkable young ladies.
I know, I was gonna offer to take care of that baby.
Okay, Dr. French, you're up. Get close, but not there yet.
She's only gonna take 30 seconds.
Oh, that's a lot of pressure. So I have data to share with you, lots of nice charts and graphs to look at. I've also emailed you a digital copy instead of printing all of this off, so you have access to this as well. But we're going to start with iStep, and so just to kind of give you a general overview, I'm not sure how much you've looked into our iStep scores or other iStep scores around us. Statewide, they have decreased this year from last year. So actually the last 3 years, the state passing percentages have all decreased. They've been on a slight decline for the last few years. So we have it broken down by school building and by grade level. And I'll just flip through there so that you can kind of get a feel. I know when we look at that, we see, oh, okay, that's a lot of red. But again, this is very comparable. Actually, we're 10 to 12% percentage points higher than North Vermillion and 1 or 2 percentage points behind Vigo County. But we're right in line with everyone in our state. And so
Did
this
you
is
you emailed that?
Yes.
I did, yes, yes. So
No, we expect you to get it all right now.
Remember this, there's going to be a quiz at the end. You thought the handwriting was hard, it's about to get real. No, but one of the things I do want to point out is this is one of our focus areas, is our iStep at the high school, our math. I do want to point out most of these are first-time iStep takers. So by senior year, we have 90% passing rate, but it might take 3 or 4 times to get there. So even though that doesn't look pretty, by senior year, we're at 90% passing. And with graduation pathways that Mr. Chapman's been talking about, there can be ways to not have the test and be able to waive the test, which some of the counties around us are doing. After they do not pass the first time, their parents can sign a waiver and state that they're going to be on another graduation pathway. So that's what a lot of the school corporations around us are looking at.
And that pathway would have to be approved by the board before it can be implemented.
Mm-hmm. It's just some things that are going on around us. Corporation-wide though, grades 3 through 8, and you can see English reading on the left, math on the right, and it looks very similar to the statewide. So, us, everyone else. You can barely tell. So, even though there's a lot of red, we're very competitive with all of the schools around us. And I wanted to just talk about also some of the other things we're doing to support our math courses. So this year, Mr. Schimmel has implemented a lot of different math supports, basic math courses, Algebra 1 labs, some different type of remediation to help scaffold that instruction to get them ready for those higher math courses that they have to take for credit. And another thing that we're doing is we're looking at reviewing our K-8 math curriculum. We adopted a math curriculum about 3 years ago. Right now, it's proving to be, by third-party research companies, it's the least effective rated curriculum that's available. So we want to see what else we can get, what other resources we can bring in until it's full adoption time, but see how we can kind of build up that curriculum and kind of fill in those gaps so we can stretch that curriculum to 8th grade. And another thing I'd like to talk about is our NWEA data. And we're really excited about this. We've been training our teachers. Our principals are really learning a lot about the different types of reports. So the NWEA is new this year. It's our test that we take 3 times a year. So beginning, middle, and end of year. And this is the test that measures their growth. So they take it in reading and in math. So at the beginning of the year, we started, and if you just really look at the left column and the right column, so our kindergartners, they took the test, and their results show that according to national norms of all the other kids in the nation that have taken this test, kindergarten, they are right in line with where they need to be. So that stands for beginning year kindergarten. And we took it at the beginning of the year. So they're right where they need to be, basically. So K-2 in reading, we're comparative to all of the national norms. 3 to 5, we're still comparative with all the national norms. And then 6th grade, we take a little bit of a dip. So our 6th graders at the beginning of the year test actually graded or rated as far as, like, they scored as 5th grade, middle of 5th grade year. So that's kind of like where they're scoring at, middle of 5th grade year, but they're 6th graders. Our high school English is doing nice. And then we go to math, and math we're still on level with all of our national norms. We take a little bit of dip in 3rd and 5th grade. And another little dip in 6th and 8th grade. And then, this is painful to look at, our 9th grade scores are testing at the end of 4th grade. Yeah, and there's a lot of factors that go into testing. Kids being over-tested, tested out, they don't take it seriously. They can rush through, so it's not meaningful, so sometimes it might not be a perfect gauge of where they're at. And then just some other data I wanted to throw at you. So I showed you Imagine Math Facts, the game that's like a video game to improve their fluency. So our elementary schools have been using that pretty regularly, and so this is kind of the data on that. So when they start, this is kind of their familiarity with their math facts is the red, and then after a few days, it bumps up to the blue. So they're increasing in their fluency very quickly. And then I also showed you the component where if they get stuck on a math problem, they can call a live teacher. And so our kids are getting really comfortable with calling live teachers. So that's all of our live teacher sessions when they've asked for help. You can see that number increase. So over 150 of our sessions of our kids asking for live help for teachers.
Now, what grade level is this?
That's 2 through 8. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we have some high school classes. Some of our lower high school classes are using it also. Yeah. So that's all. I just wanted to show you that, kind of go over it with you, and then if you have any questions when you're looking at it later, please feel free to email me or come see me and we can talk about it more in depth. Any questions, just off the cuff?
Are you gonna have maybe in future months a kind of your plan for after you've had, I know the data just came out,
Right.
so kind of the plan of how you're gonna implement the data?
Yes, we will. And right after fall break, the principal and I are working and we have a work session and we're gonna do it. It's gonna be an action plan strategy session.
Sounds like math curriculum is
Yeah,
one of the things
exactly.
you're looking at, but
Yep.
I think we'll be interested in seeing that.
Yeah, and the NWEA data, we're doing a lot of training with our teachers on that, and it breaks down data so much. It shows right what their kids really need, the holes in their knowledge. So we're trying to give that information to teachers so that teachers know how to use that for instruction. So that's been a really good process, and I think it's very promising, and I think teachers are really excited about it. Yeah. Anything else?
Other questions? Thank you, Dr. French.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jenny.
Okay, moving on. Next item is recommendation to approve the Phase 2 report of the Ox Gym and final pricing of the Ox Gym project.
Members of the board, Steve Thoman and Steve Savoy from Performance Services are here with us this evening to review the Phase 2 report on the auxiliary gym project. I'm going to turn it over to Steve.
Yeah, I'm going to stand right here so I can click forward here. But last time we were here, we were presented a Phase 1 report, which were drawings and a design that were developed in harmony with Dave and staff to include all the inclusions of the design that best suits the needs for the school and the curriculum. Our drawings were almost complete at that time, but at the same time we were estimating the cost of the work as well as testing key trades and key contractors getting engaged in the project to make sure that we were maximizing the available budget to meet all the wish lists and all the requests of the school. So we did that, and this is going to be a very short presentation. We received final pricing, and we're very pleased to announce that we came in under budget. And further, we at that time developed a base scope as well as isolated a few things as alternates. And you are in a position to accept all the alternates and take the project completely as desired for under the available budget. Any questions?
How's that for a presentation? Under budget, we like it.
Well, the additional technology system.
Yeah.
I think that was the one that had all of the real technical.
Yeah, that includes, our base scope of technology was technology and infrastructure for the spaces to function. This technology alternate advances that to include such things as a sound system in the fitness / weight room, a nice sound system in the gymnasium, flat panel TVs in the fitness area to make it really feel like a true aerobic area, and things of that nature. So the other alternates were windows in the gymnasium up high to add some natural light, and we isolated as a safe measure the bleachers to get a separate price for that, just so that we know, knowing that the gym could function without the motorized bleachers. And I believe there was one other, replacing the pool heater. Not directly involved with this project, but in conversations, it really just needs to be done as a high priority.
Right.
Could we potentially look at adding that vestibule to the pool area that we talked about?
It's possible, yes.
Depending on the, based on where we're coming
on
in?
that south entrance?
Yeah.
Yeah. We can look into that, yes.
I think that would be great.
I mean, that would be the time to do it when we're out there under construction with this project. That certainly.
It would eliminate a lot of the issues that we've had and questions in the past.
I'd rather spend that than the technology.
At 60, I think I would too.
We're happy to accommodate.
We'll do what we can.
As far as construction, right now, we planned on talking with Dave and the leadership team But currently, we're anticipating breaking ground per se the start of spring. Spring in Indiana, as you know, could be first week of February or a month later. But right now, which is the natural logistics of construction, and with your approval tonight to proceed, we would enter in contract with the subcontractors, start the process of submittals and long lead time items such as steel and whatnot.
Yeah, you probably want to lock in steel prices now.
Yeah. It would be
Who knows where they're going?
Yeah.
I'd like for you to take a look and see if we could replace those music suite doors.
It's already been taken care of.
It has?
Yeah, I've already talked with Punk, it's gonna be taken care of.
Awesome.
We're working with professional class on that right now.
Thank you. Just the one door or all the internals?
We're gonna try to get the main door there first and then see what we have with the other doors.
Okay.
Going into the band room.
Yes.
For example,
Super.
that's outside of this, yeah.
Super.
We got that budgeted.
Thank you.
Anything else? Otherwise, I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the Phase 2 report and the final pricing as presented for the Ox Gym. I guess we'll, if it's okay, we'll give Dave the authority to negotiate the addendums, or the alternates. Does that please the board? Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all members in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Ayes have it, motion carries. Next item, recommendation to approve health insurance increase of 5% for 2018-2019.
Members of the board, as you're aware, the premium increase of 5% was put in place for the upcoming year for our health insurance. I would like to recommend to the board that the 5% increase be absorbed by the board, thus having no financial impact on the employees who take part in our insurance plan. Appreciate your approval of that this evening.
I'll make that motion.
A second.
A motion and a second to approve the health insurance increase of 5% for 2018-2019. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all members in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Ayes have it, motion carries. Next item, recommendation to approve the student exchange program with Hong Kong for the 2019-2020 school year and the trip to Hong Kong from November 21st, 2019 to November 30th, 2019.
Members of the board of South Marion High School is requesting approval for students to travel to Hong Kong next school year as part of the ongoing exchange program. The timing of this request gives students identified that will be going the opportunity to raise funds to cover some of the expenses for the trip. Like Laura's trip to Costa Rica, this is we think is very invaluable to our students to seek out educational opportunities beyond the classroom. We ask your approval of that to continue this evening.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve continuing the student exchange program with Hong Kong for the 2019-2020 school year, as well as authorize our students' trip to Hong Kong next November 21st, 2019 through November 30th, 2019. Hopefully they can find some turkey over there.
Well, I've been there, so I'm not going to comment, but they'll have something for Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
I was there. Matter of fact, I was there at Thanksgiving one year.
Any further discussion?
It was interesting.
All members in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Ayes have it, motion carries.
I can show you pictures of those turkeys.
Oh boy.
Yeah. They don't look like ours.
Next item, recommendation to develop and post donors choose projects for crime scene sketch templates. And I have to tell you, when I read this in the agenda, I wondered what in the world.
It was interesting because just the other day, Laura had her students out there doing a crime scene. It was on your car.
It was on my car.
Yeah.
Yes,
so,
it was.
Mrs. Cottom's a very busy lady here. She's kind of doing all kinds of things. Requesting approval to post on Donors Choose items to be used for her forensic class, including this crime scene sketch templates, graph paper, measuring tapes, crime scene rulers with scale bars and clipboards. Just, you know, if you go watching, you know, CSI Miami or whatever is on now, you'll get the gist of it. But the request has been reviewed and approved both by Mr. Schimmel and myself, and we're asking board approval tonight as this is part of our board policy.
So moved.
Second.
Well, motion and second to approve the recommendation to develop and post Donors Choose projects for the crime scene sketch templates. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all members in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Ayes have it, motion carries. Next item, recommendation to approve an elementary transfer for the 2018-2019 school year.
Members of the board, you have one elementary transfer request in your packet this evening, and after consulting with both Mr. Jenkins and Mrs. Kessler, it's recommended to honor the request based on the needs of the student. We ask your approval this evening.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the elementary transfer as presented. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all members in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Ayes have it, motion carries. Next item, recommendation to accept a $5,000 donation to Ernie Pyle Elementary from the International Paper Foundation.
Members of the board, Ernie Pyle Elementary School and Mrs. Angie Stowe are requesting approval of a $5,000 donation from the International Paper Foundation to help purchase supplies and materials for the special education programs at Ernie Pyle. And I would be remiss if I did not mention the fact that we are very fortunate to have community partners such as International Paper and value their commitment to the education of our students, and we ask your approval this evening.
So it's actually a grant, right?
Mm-hmm.
Make a motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the $5,000 donation to Ernie Pyle Elementary from the International Paper Foundation. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all members in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Ayes have it, motion carries. Now, we go to our addenda. One item added this evening. Recommendation to approve collective bargaining agreement for the 2018-2019 school year with the SVEA.
Members of the board, I'm very pleased to present to you the recommendation to approve the CBA for the 2018-19 school year. You received an email earlier regarding the details of the agreement. This agreement was reached in one session and was very much a collaborative effort by both parties. I do want to publicly thank the SVA members, Joe Wright, President, Jackie Roberts, Cheryl Crockett, Misty Harrison. Did I leave anybody out, Joe? Tom Milam, that's right.
And Dawn was really.
And yeah, they did a lot of work behind the scenes prior to our meetings, and we feel that there was a lot of give and take and a very positive dialogue in our meeting. And the SVA earlier this afternoon ratified the CBA, and so we come to you now to request your approval. And basically, the gist of it is about a 1.8% increase on the base. The school corporation paying the increase on the health insurance, and the eligible teachers moving up a step, which was $1,000 per step. So we feel very good about that, knowing that we're able to give the teachers a good increase on their salaries, and at the same time being held very fiscally responsible for the health and well-being of the school corporation. We ask your approval this evening.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the collective bargaining agreement with the SVA for 2018-2019. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all members in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Ayes have it. Motion carries. That completes our regular portion of tonight's agenda, which brings us to our last and final comments from citizens period. If anybody in the audience would like to address the board before we adjourn, now would be your chance to do so. Please stand and state your name for the record if you're interested in making citizens comment. Mr. Jenkins.
Ryan Jenkins, Central Elementary. I do have to say, Bethany Karanovich, my functional teacher, saw that Mrs. Harris was presenting tonight and was extremely excited and came to me and wanted me to update her very much after the presentation. So it is something that I think Central would like to pursue too, if you guys see so fit, as to move forward with it at the next board meeting when it comes to a decision. So just want to state that for the record, that we would be very much behind it as well.
Thank you, Mr. Jenkins. Anybody else? Hearing none, we'll close comments from citizens and conclude with first superintendent comment, and then conclude board member comment.
Members of the board, I have just two items. First, I'm going to introduce Mrs. Kessler. My comment is we've had a couple heroes in our school corporation recently, and this lady here is booming with pride and with what happened, and I would do a disservice if I didn't let her make this announcement to you and show you.
Well, I don't know if you saw Channel 2 News last night or this morning, but they came out and interviewed my two kiddos, Zach and Lane. Last Friday during breakfast, I was called to the cafeteria because I greet the children at the front door, and I have an aide that covers the cafeteria, and I was called desperately to come to the cafeteria, so I ran in my heels down the hallway, and she said, hey, these two boys just saved this child's life. And I thought, there's no way. Well, the little kindergartner was choking on his cereal. His face was starting to turn red. He was grabbing his neck and gasping for air, and the two boys that were sitting across from him happened to see it. They jumped up, they ran around to the table, and one boy had been trained in CPR, so he knew to grab him and cup his hand a little bit and hit him on the back and dislodge the cereal from his throat. Wow. So truly did save him from choking that day. And so I Friday gave him them a card and a candy bar, and they thought that was amazing. And they were like, what's going, why are we getting thanked for this? We just saw someone needed our help, so we helped them. I don't think they truly understand what they truly did for him. And so we called the news, and Channel 10 is actually coming tomorrow to interview them. And in the interview, if you watch it, it says, he's like, I kept saying, why are we getting all this praise? And the other little boy said, well, we've been told just because, you know, if we see anybody in need, we're going to help them. Mm-hmm. And so it's like what you want to hear from every single child. So why we teach every single day, and they put it into action. So it was just a really cool, it was hard at first. We were worried at first, but now it's really clued in. So.
I did see that.
Did you see it?
It was awesome. The two little boys were, and it was like, why are we getting all this praise?
It was a really impressive interview.
Very humble.
Yeah. They were very well spoken.
And they in kindergarten too? Were they?
No, they were in fourth grade.
Fourth grade.
Mm-hmm. Mrs. Daniel's fourth grade class.
And I think they've taught a lot of the younger kids. Like my first grader came home and said that, you don't do the Heimlich on kids that size because you'll break their bones, and that you cup your hand. And I'm like, she's in first grade, and she learned that just from them. So
it turned out to be a great experience. So Channel 10, maybe watch it tomorrow night. You might see them again.
Oh, that's
awesome.
Thank you.
Thank
That's
you,
awesome.
Do we have a certificate of appreciation?
I am absolutely positive we could put one together. Yes.
Oh, I think that
bring them here in November.
I think that would be awesome.
Great. Awesome.
Thank you.
It's kind of hard to top that, and I'll just say fall break is upon us, and wish everybody a restful and relaxing fall break. I'll leave it at that.
Great. All right, Mr. Cool.
I'd like to thank everybody for their presentation tonight. Wish everybody a safe fall break, and that's about it.
Thank you. Ms. Crotto?
I would like to thank everybody for their presentation as well, and congratulate Mr. Jenkins. I saw that he was recognized as well for the 12 under 40. And our band, our amazing band, where they're going. And to state, and Mrs. Cottom, I wanted to give you some recognition on this forensics class. I was recently on a scholarship committee, and several of those students have taken this forensics class, and it's amazing how many different directions these kids are going by using that class. And I was impressed. Dental, you know, some of them are going into dentistry and going to use that in that area, and others in architecture because they're going to go into the forensic side of what goes wrong, you know. And it was really, I thought this was the first year for it, but I think from what I understood this.
7?
Is that right?
It's been a while, yeah.
That's it, really?
It goes fast.
Yeah, it didn't seem like it, but it's been about,
It goes fast.
6, 7
That's
years.
great, that's great. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. West?
Ditto, everything Larry and Ginger had to say. Enjoy, be safe out there.
Mrs. Hill?
I covered it. Hit them all. Started on the wrong side today.
Yeah. You gotta keep you on your toes. Mrs. Ollie?
The only thing I want to add is I want to put a vote of confidence about that. I've had some personal experience with the effects of dog therapy and am really behind it and hope that, you know, it does go forth. It's really a good effort. So that's it.
Thank you. All great comments. That's the bad thing about being last. Everybody takes up your time. But no, I agree. Ditto, ditto. All right. Anything else? Otherwise, entertain a motion.
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Stand adjourned. Thank you for coming.
Don't forget to sign it.
Oh, yeah.